All right, so today we're diving into a place that I'm sure you've all heard of, the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, yeah.
Tons of stories about it, right? Vanishing ships, missing planes.
Right. All kinds of crazy theories.
But we're gonna try and look past all that spooky stuff.
Yeah.
See what science actually says.
Exactly. Okay, cool.
Really breaks it all down.
Nice.
So, let's start with this Australian scientist, Carl Kruszelnicki.
Okay.
He's tackled tons of myths over the years.
Yeah, he's a pretty well-known skeptic.
Right. And for the Bermuda Triangle, he says it basically boils down to two things.
All right, I'm intrigued. What are they?
Human error
Okay, that makes sense.
and weather.
Of course, always got to factor in the weather.
Exactly. So let's look at one of the most famous cases,
Okay.
Flight 19.
Ah, yes. The 5 Navy planes that disappeared?
In 1945.
Right.
But here's the thing.
What's that?
The weather when they took off was perfect.
Really?
Clear skies, calm winds.
So not exactly what you picture for a spooky disappearance, right?
Nope. So Kruszelnicki, he dug into the records, found something pretty interesting about the flight leader.
Okay, what was that?
Well, despite having a lot of flight time,
Yeah.
he had a bit of a reputation
Oh, for what?
getting lost.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, turns out he'd been off course multiple times before,
Right.
even tried to get someone else to take his shift that day.
Wow. So it's almost like he knew.
It's really interesting, right? Because you think about all these mysterious forces,
Right.
but then you realize it could just be a simple mistake.
I mean, we're all human rights.
Exactly. Even experienced professionals can make mistakes.
Especially under pressure.
And speaking of pressure,
Uh-oh.
during the training exercise, both compasses on board malfunctioned.
No way. Are you serious?
Yeah.
So they were flying blind, essentially.
Pretty much. Can you imagine the stress?
Oh, I can only imagine. Talk about a nightmare scenario.
And this is where Kruszelnicki makes a really interesting point.
Okay, what's that?
He thinks even with the compass issues, the pilot's navigation errors were the main cause.
Really?
Yeah, he basically mistook the Bahamas for the Florida Keys
Oh, wow.
and ended up flying further and further out to sea.
So he just kept going thinking he was heading home.
Exactly, until they ran out of fuel.
That's tragic.
Yeah, it really highlights how important good navigation is.
Absolutely, even when technology fails.
You need to be able to rely on your skills and knowledge.
For sure, it could mean the difference between life and death.
So while the compass malfunction was definitely a factor,
Yeah,
ultimately it was the pilot's decisions that sealed their fate.
and that happens a lot more than we realize, I bet.
Right? Human error plays a huge role in a lot of these maritime disasters.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how many other Bermuda Triangle disappearances might have similar explanations.
Right. So we've got human error as one piece of the puzzle.
Okay.
Now let's bring in the other factor.
Right.
Weather.
Oh, yeah, can't forget about that.
The Bermuda Triangle is right in the middle of Hurricane Alley.
That's right.
And then you've got the Gulf Stream churning through there.
Making things even more unpredictable.
Exactly. So you've got this recipe for some seriously wild weather.
And we're talking about a time before sophisticated weather forecasting.
Right?
Imagine being caught in a sudden storm with no warning.
No way to call for help.
Exactly, it would be terrifying.
Like with the USS Cyclops.
The massive cargo ship that disappeared in 1918.
Yeah, no distress signal, no survivors, no wreckage.
309 people just gone.
Chilling reminder of how powerful the ocean can be.
For sure, it's easy to see how people would attribute that to something supernatural.
Right. So sudden catastrophic storms, those are definitely a possibility.
Yeah.
But then there are these almost mythical phenomena like rogue waves.
Oh yeah, those are fascinating.
These massive waves that appear out of nowhere,
Sometimes over 100 feet high.
capable of sinking even large ships.
And so unpredictable.
Right. You could be sailing in relatively calm seas and suddenly you're hit by a wall of water.
Yeah, they're incredibly dangerous.
Okay, so we've got storms, rogue waves, but wait, there's more.
Oh, there's more.
Kruszelnicki brings up another possibility.
Hit me with it.
Methane clathrates.
Methane clathrates. Okay, I'm listening.
So these are like ice-like compounds found on the ocean floor,
Okay.
and they trap methane gas.
All right.
Sometimes these compounds break free.
Releasing the gas.
Exactly, and these massive bubbles rise to the surface.
Okay.
And here's the thing, these bubbles can actually reduce the density of the water.
Really?
Yeah, making it harder for ships to stay afloat.
So a ship could just be sailing along and suddenly...
The water beneath it just gives way.
Wow. That's kind of terrifying.
Right.
It's like something out of a movie.
It is a pretty fascinating theory.
It is.
But video points out
Okay, I'm all ears.
there are no officially recognized boundaries for the Bermuda Triangle.
Wait,
No official map or chart that defines it.
huh. So how do we even know what we're talking about?
Right. And this actually contributes to the myth.
How so?
Because any disappearance that happens in a really broad area of the Atlantic
Yeah.
can be blamed on the Bermuda Triangle.
Even if it happened hundreds of miles away from what people think of as the danger zone.
Exactly. It's like the more we talk about it,
Yeah.
the bigger this mysterious triangle becomes.
Like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Kind of makes you wonder if there was a clear area.
Yeah.
Would the mystery still be so strong?
That's a good question.
So let's take the Mary Celeste, for example.
Okay. The ship that was found, abandoned but intact.
Right back in 1872.
Yeah, that one's often linked to the Bermuda Triangle, right?
It is, but guess what?
Yeah.
It was actually found hundreds of miles away from the area most people associate with the Bermuda Triangle.
Wow, so not even in the triangle.
Nope. It's a classic example of how this lack of boundaries lets incidents that happen far outside the zone get swept up in the narrative.
So basically,
Anytime something goes missing in a certain part of the Atlantic,
people automatically blame the Bermuda Triangle.
even if there's no real evidence to support it.
It's like it's become this catch-all explanation for anything mysterious at sea.
Exactly. And it all comes back to that power of storytelling.
Right. A good story can really shape how we see things.
Even when there are more logical explanations.
If you think, huh?
Yeah, it really is amazing how a good story can stick with us, you know?
Oh, absolutely. It's like our brains are wired for it.
Totally. Even if we're debunking the myths around the Bermuda Triangle, we still have some pretty cool real-world phenomena to think about.
Right? Like hurricanes and rogue waves.
The Gulf Stream methane clathrates, it's a reminder that there's still so much we don't know about our own planet.
For sure, nature can be just as mysterious as anything we can dream up.
Like, imagine you're sailing through the Bermuda Triangle and suddenly, bam, you're hit by a rogue wave. I don't think you're thinking about compasses or methane bubbles at that point.
Nope. It's pure survival mode.
And that's where human error can come back into play, right?
Oh, absolutely. In a situation like that, anyone can make a mistake.
Even the most experienced sailor.
Exactly. The pressure, the fear can all lead to bad decisions.
So it's this mix of human actions and these powerful forces of nature that make the Bermuda Triangle so interesting.
Yeah, it's like this perfect storm of elements that create this sense of mystery.
And it's worth remembering that the Bermuda Triangle is a pretty busy place.
Oh, yeah. Tons of ships and planes pass through there all the time.
Cargo ships, cruise ships, private boats, airplanes. It's a major shipping route and a popular tourist destination.
Right. And statistically, the number of disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle is no higher than in other well-traveled areas.
It's like the more we focus on the mystery, the less we think about the simple fact that accidents happen.
Everywhere. Exactly. It's just that in the Bermuda Triangle, those accidents get a lot more attention.
Because of the myth.
Exactly. It's like we're primed to see something sinister in every incident.
Yeah. And the media plays a big role in that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
A few high-profile disappearances, and suddenly everyone's talking about the Bermuda Triangle as this cursed place.
Even though statistically it's not any more dangerous than other parts of the ocean.
It just goes to show how a few dramatic stories can really overshadow reality.
So if we're saying that the Bermuda Triangle is more myth than reality, why does it still hold such a grip on our imagination?
That's a great question. I think it's because we're drawn to the unknown.
The possibility that there are forces out there that we can't explain.
Right, even if we can logically explain most of the disappearances.
There's still that little voice in the back of our head saying,
What if?
exactly, what if? There's something more to it. Something extraordinary.
It's that sense of wonder that keeps us coming back to these stories.
And it's not just about believing in the supernatural either.
Right, it's also about acknowledging the power of nature.
The vastness and unpredictability of the ocean.
Even with all our technology, we can't fully control or predict what will happen out there.
And the Bermuda Triangle kind of represents that humbling reality.
It reminds us that we're not always in charge, that nature can still surprise us.
And maybe there's a certain comfort in that realization.
Maybe the Bermuda Triangle allows us to embrace the unknown, to acknowledge that there are still mysteries out there waiting to be solved.
And that's what makes exploring these topics so much fun, right?
Absolutely. It's not about proving or disproving anything.
It's about asking questions, looking at the evidence, and maybe seeing things from a new perspective.
It's about appreciating how complex the world is and realizing that even the simplest explanations can have layers of intrigue.
So what does all this mean for our listeners? Well, next time you hear someone talking about the Bermuda Triangle, remember what we've discussed today?
Remember the human element, the power of nature, and the allure of the unknown.
You can separate fact from fiction and appreciate the real forces at play without dismissing the mystery altogether.
And who knows, maybe you'll even spark some interesting conversations of your own.
So it's like, do we like having things explained, or do we kind of like having a little mystery in our lives?
Yeah, that's a good question. Maybe it's a bit of both,
Right,
you know?
right.
We want to understand the world, but we also don't want to lose that sense of wonder.
That makes sense.
Like the Bermuda Triangle, with all its stories and legends, it lets us hold on to that idea that there are things we don't know.
Even if we try to explain them.
Exactly.
So even after all the science and debunking, do you think there's still a part of us that wants to believe there's more to the Bermuda Triangle than just mistakes and bad weather?
I think it's totally natural to be drawn to the idea of the unexplained.
Right.
It's part of what makes us human, that desire to explore, to push the boundaries of what we know.
Yeah, I get that.
And even if we can explain almost all the disappearances in the Bermuda Triangle,
Yeah.
there's still that thought in the back of your mind.
Like, what if?
Exactly, what if there's something else out there, something we haven't figured out yet?
It's like that curiosity that keeps us looking for answers, even when those answers might not be as exciting as we hoped.
That's a good point. The search for knowledge can be just as rewarding as the knowledge itself.
So true.
The Bermuda Triangle, whether we see it as a scientific puzzle or a mystery, it keeps us fascinated, keeps us wanting to learn more about the world, our history, even ourselves.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the Bermuda Triangle, we'll leave you with this.
Okay.
Next time you hear a spooky story about this infamous patch of ocean, remember what we talked about today.
Right, think about the human element, the power of nature, and the allure of the unknown.
Use that knowledge to separate fact from fiction.
And appreciate the real forces at work out there.
But don't be afraid to keep that sense of wonder alive,
Absolutely.
because that's what makes exploring these topics so much fun.
Couldn't agree more.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Bermuda Triangle.